Hi, welcome. It is Wednesday, August 26th, and today we'll continue getting ready for your quiz on section 2.2. And today I'm going to demonstrate two of the same type of problem that were on your review yesterday. And the reason is that these are very representative of having an understanding of what. So here's our point t equals 1. This length from the bottom of this red line to that point is 1, which is the same as the radius of this circle, which is also 1. Now, I took that radius, I just measured it out on here and made a little dot. Now, if I take that red segment and I wrap it around the circle, that dot is going to land right where the number 1 is. Then you can describe what are the coordinates of that point. So if I draw lines to the x and y axis, that's going to give me my points here. Alright, so my first line is from 1 over to the x-axis. Whoops. Let's get that squared away. So to get the coordinates of the point, that black point, this vertical line is going to give me my x-coordinate, and I believe the instructions say round to the nearest tenth, so that's closest to the 0.5. So I'm going to say my x-coordinate is 5/10. And then over here is I draw a line over to the y-axis. Let's see, 0.5, 6, 7. That's closest to 8/10. What these two coordinates mean, it's the location of that point, but we defined whatever the x-coordinate was. Okay, that was the same as the cosine of whatever this measurement was. In this case, it was 1. So we can say that the cosine of 1 is equal to 5/10. Right? The y-coordinate is the same as the sine of this length, which was 1. So the sine of 1 is equal to 8/10. So this was your y-coordinate, this was your x-coordinate when you're on the unit circle. Okay, your tangent is your y divided by your x. So in our case, that's going to be 8/10 divided by 5/10. And that's 1 6/10. Alright, now the remaining three are the reciprocal functions. The cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so that's the same as 1 over whatever the y-coordinate is. So if it was a fraction, we'd flip it. 8/10 you could write as a fraction, 8/10, so then you could flip it and get 10/8, or you could just do 1 divided by 0.8. Round to the nearest tenth, so that would round to 1 3/10. Our secant is the reciprocal of the x-coordinate, the cosine, so that's going to be 1 over, or divided by 0.5, which is going to be 2. It's 1 divided by 1/2, 2. And then our cotangent would be x over y. So we have 0.5 and 8/10. and that is equal to the nearest tenth, that we'd say that would be 0.6. Alright, so when you're doing these here, the reciprocal ones, you can also use this key that says x with a -1 exponent. Alright, so if I was going to do the reciprocal of 8/10, another way I could do it would be to go 0.8, 8/10, and now hit the reciprocal key, and I'm going to get 1.25, which we rounded to 1.3. So that's another way of getting reciprocals. The reciprocal of 5/10, 0.5, reciprocal key, and I get 2. Alright, the second part of this lesson is you're doing the exact same thing, but now you're using your calculator to give us these coordinates. And it'll be a little bit more accurate than what you did when you were just eyeballing it. Alright, these lengths, when you're dealing with a real number here, like 1, or this could be anything. It could be 2.4, it could be pi over 3. Those are all radians, okay? Because they're based on the length of the radius of that circle. So you have to make sure that your calculator is set to radians. So we press mode, and we want to be sure that the word radian is highlighted, and it is. Okay. So to find the sine of 1 radian, I go sine 1, close the parentheses, and then enter. Okay. And then this, it says round to the nearest hundredth. So we have 0.841, and that would round to 0.84. Okay. Cosine 1, enter. And that gives me 0.540, which would be 0.54. Okay, tangent 1 radian is 1.557, and that would round to 1.56. So what I just showed you was these right here: the sine, the cosine, and the tangent. So to do the reciprocal functions, all we do, we type them in just like the other ones, except at the end we hit x to the -1. We use the reciprocal key. So to get my cosecant, alright, for cosecant, that's the reciprocal of sine. I'm gonna do sine 1, okay, and then hit the reciprocal. Okay, so what that would look like, clear, sine 1, close the parentheses, reciprocal, enter. And round to the nearest hundredth, that would be 1.188 or 1.19. Okay, secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I go cosine 1, reciprocal, enter. Okay, 1.850, that would be 1.85. Cotangent 1. So I'm going to go tangent 1, reciprocal, enter. And that would be 0.642. which would be 0.64. And that's how you do it using your calculator. All right, our second problem in here is 2.5. So again, if we took a number line and we measured 2.5 units up, so that, remember, that's the same as taking this radius and marking 2.5 of them. So it'd be up here somewhere. And then we wrap this circle around like it was a piece of string, it would land halfway between 2 and 3. So this is 2, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 right there. So to get my coordinates then, right, that's going to be the y coordinate, which is 6/10. And then my x coordinate would be, let's see, well, this is 1, so this would be 0.9, 0.8. Now, the signs on these, since I'm in the second quadrant, the x coordinate is negative and the y coordinate is positive. So over here we got our y coordinate is our sign, and it says round that to the nearest tenth. So we got negative 0.8. Our cosine is, I'm sorry, I got those mixed up. This is our y coordinate, which is 6/10. This is our x coordinate, which is negative 8/10. Okay, and then our tangent is the y coordinate divided by the x coordinate. So that would be 0.6 divided by negative 0.8. Okay, to the nearest tenth, that would be negative 8/10. Negative 0.75 to the nearest tenth rounds to 8/10. All right, now to do our cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So this is going to be 1 over y, 1 divided by 6/10. The secant is 1 over x, so that's going to be 1 divided by negative 8/10. And then our cotangent is x over y, so that's going to be negative 8/10 divided by 6/10. And then you would do those on your calculator and round each one to the nearest hundred or nearest tenth. So doing those on my calculator, I got 1.7, 1, negative 1 and 3/10, and negative 1, and then also negative 1 and 3/10. So here's a table with the different keystrokes. And I highlighted the ones that are the reciprocals. That's when you're using the x to the negative 1 key. And all that does is do the same thing as flipping. Now on these, what you're doing is you're rounding them to the nearest hundredth, and be sure that you are in radians. So it's 2.5 radians. All right, so as we enter these, and then we'll round them. And all right, so there's our cosine. And round that to the nearest hundredth is 0.59. 9, 8. So that 8 makes the 9 a 10, which is going to turn this into 6/10. Okay, next up, cosine. Cosine 2.5, parentheses, okay, to the nearest hundredth. I'm going to look at this first one, and it says leave the 0 alone. So that will be 0.80 or 0.8. Okay, and then tangent 2.5. And to the nearest hundredth, that will be negative 0.75. All right, now my reciprocals, I'm going to do the same way, except before I hit enter, I'm going to hit the reciprocal key, the x to the negative 1. So for my cosecant, I'm going to go sine 2.5, close the parentheses, now hit the reciprocal key, then hit enter. And that to the nearest hundredth would be 1.67. Okay, for secant, I'm going to go cosine 2.5, reciprocal, enter, negative 1.25 because of the 8. And then the last one, tangent 2.5, reciprocal, enter, negative 134. The 8 would round this 3 to a 4. And there you have it. All right, folks. The quiz will be on Thursday.